Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Hello, and welcome to Game Over Vancouver. My name is Kaja Antic, and your Vancouver Canucks defeated the Detroit Red Wings 5-4 in overtime to take, especially for Kevin Lankinen, his 10th straight road victory, which I think is now tied for or the longest for road goalies. Anyway, it's impressive whatsoever. It's impressive outside of that as well. Welcome to Game Over Vancouver. The Vancouver Canucks stormed through with overtime victories on this road trip apparently. I'm getting hellos from Mark and Zach in the chat, the other two Game Over Vancouver hosts. And before we get into breaking down today's game, check out the flagship show of our Game Over Network on the Game Over Network Hub channel. Hyperdrive Hockey, all things hockey across various leagues in multiple countries. Whatever it is and wherever it is, Max, Daphne, and Kev have you covered for all your hockey news with a steady dose of fun and fan engagement. You can find Hyperdrive Hockey on the Game Over Network YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on the Hyperdrive Hockey page at thegameovernetwork.com. Okay, so Vancouver Canucks, they're coming into this game at 12:30 Detroit time. Ooh, give me a second. My chair fell. Must apart. Thank you for joining from car. It's weird seeing a Game Over Vancouver while seeing sunlight. Yeah. It's 12:34 right now. I almost started the show saying good morning, but it's just past morning. I don't know. And maybe the Canucks were also Sorry, I just saw the replay. I got so close to the camera there. I am so sorry, y'all. Um yeah, it was an early game. 9:30 a.m. start time for the Vancouver Canucks today, and they showed it. They did not do a lot. How many shots did they get? I think it was 4 in the first period. That's not shots. Where are shots? Break down the shots. Shot report. Thank you. Whew. The Canucks had, in the first period, 6 shots on goal. That's great. That's so good. That's so good. I mean, they made up for it in the second, but just the first period, 6 shots on goal. Really? And I mean, um, yeah, they just felt like it was slow to start. And I mean, hey, your body thinks it's 9:30 or whatever. Jet lag. I mean, they've been on this road trip for what feels like forever right now. But yeah, I don't know. That first period wasn't the best performance from them. They allow the first goal. Again, lost track of how many games that's happened this season, but it's definitely a big majority of that. Yeah, and they don't get any Sorry, they don't get any goals in that first period, but they do show up in the second with Jake DeBrusk scoring 2 after there was the 5-on-3, which carried on from the first period because there was an Edvinsson hooking against Connor Garland with like a minute and 1 second to go in that first period. Then goes to like 30 seconds, 32 seconds later, I can do math, 32 seconds later, Justin Hall, Toronto Maple Leafs legend Justin Hall, gets a holding call against Elias Pettersson, and the Canucks don't score on the ensuing 5-on-3, so they both carry on over to the second period. Jake DeBrusk, very happy about that fact because he scores not once, but twice, both on the power play within the first minute and 6 seconds of the second period. So Jake DeBrusk, for quite a while in this Canucks game, had all of their goals until 17:47 into the second period when Pius Suter just an amazing shot. He's just what a talent. What a talent that man is. Missed an early game. 9:30 in the morning. Yeah, it was an early one. I understand having Boston doing like the 3 EST time slot, but it was rough for the West Coast. It was rough. Yeah, on a Sunday, anyway, Jake DeBrusk said it was like when he was getting up for and playing hockey when he was a kid, and I was just like, oh, that's cute at least. But yeah, Canucks do give up a goal against Alex DeBrincat. I honestly don't remember if it was the DeBrincat 2-2 goal or one of the ones in the third period that Heinen could not clear the puck. I can't remember because he was on the ice for most of the goals. Yeah, he was on the ice for both the DeBrincat and Rasmussen goals. I think it was the DeBrincat one where he coughed up the puck trying to get it out of the zone on the penalty kill. No, that wasn't even... Oh, that was like the second goal was like right after the penalty had ended. Höglander was back on the ice, but Höglander was back on the ice, but he hadn't made it into the zone yet. So, that's that. I don't know. He made up for it later in the game. He made up for it with blocking like 20 shots, with just his entire body for that. So there was a lot of pucks hitting people just everywhere throughout this game. Like Garland got hit in the ear, I believe, with the puck. He left for the majority of the second period. He returned for the start of the third, but he had like a bit of blood coming from one of his ears, from his left ear, and then some of it got on the jersey as well as his like neck guard. So, I mean, I hope everything's okay because he came back to play the game. But yeah, I mean, Connor Garland once scored a goal off of his face, so I'm not entirely like he's probably not very surprised by that outcome. But yeah, still, the Canucks only got 2 past the worst penalty kill in the league. Going into the game, they were at 66% roughly, so that's around 1/3 of the power play goals. 1/3 of the power plays they get scored on. So not great if you're a Detroit fan, but if you're looking at that from a Canucks standpoint, to strengthen the power play, gotta get some action on that. They do get those first two goals, and then the rest, it just felt like they were, I don't want to say anxious to shoot, but they weren't they weren't really sending it, if you get it. But yeah, yeah, they did get those two power play goals. It was the first two DeBrusque goals, because he did score the overtime winner. The first two DeBrusque goals were scored on 3 shots total. So, I mean, hey, 66% of his shots in that period, or the shots in that portion of the game, went in. 66% of the time the penalty kill does work for the Detroit Red Wings. Parallels, I don't know. It's way too early to hockey brain. Anyway, yeah, Jake DeBrusk has a second career hat trick with the not with the Canucks, but he gets a second career hat trick overall. He has not had a Canucks hat trick yet. He has one now. But yeah, he was on Hattie Watch within the first like minute or so of the second period, which is a bit wild. The Canucks also didn't have, where was it? I want to talk a little bit about that challenge. Because it was, so if you missed the game, Michael Rasmussen, who's from Surrey, BC, scores against his hometown team on the power play. The Canucks challenge for goaltender interference. In my opinion, I know the goaltender interference rule can be tricky. I know it's not exactly clear what counts as goaltender interference from time to time. At the same time, he didn't really impede, like, Lankinen, yeah, sure, he was interfered with, but that was well ahead of the time that Rasmussen, or even the shot went off for him to score. My apologies. It was a while off. I don't understand why they challenged it, because they're like showing the replay and I'm just like, yeah, he's standing in the blue paint, but Lankinen's getting around him. He's not exactly, like, it's not like Rasmussen completely backed up into Lankinen and just was like, okay, no, you're, like, it's not like he held on to him or something. He's just kind of chilling there. And I get you're not supposed to be in the blue paint, and I get the goaltender interference rule flip-flops from time to time, but if I'm watching from home with just the average replay, and I can tell that it's probably, even if they try to call goaltender interference, it's not coming back. Why would the video coaches put them at that risk? Because it's a tie-in goal. It was on the power play, and if the challenge is unsuccessful, which it was, then you're going back onto the penalty kill. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to challenge that goal if it's not completely clear. Like, if it's not completely clear, if you're going to throw a Hail Mary, it's the third period, it was a power play goal. If you go back on the if you put Detroit back on the power play, you were starting off this third grade, there's a good chance that you're going to be down. And that's pretty much exactly what happened, because while the penalty for the unsuccessful challenge did end a few seconds before, Tarasenko, that was a great goal, by the way, just aside from a Canucks standpoint, like, defensively, what the heck was Desharnais doing? From just a general hockey viewpoint, that Tarasenko shot was beautiful. But yeah, I just have no idea what the thought process was when going to challenge that goal, because if it's up in the air, like, it just makes no sense for the risk. Just like a risk assessment process. You don't, like, there's still a better there's a higher chance, I feel, of Detroit scoring on that ensuing power play, which they didn't, but then scored to take the lead a little later on. There's a better chance of that happening than the challenge being successful. That's in my opinion, though. I'm not an NHL video person, so I mean, an NHL like video coach, so I'm not gonna tell them how to do their job, just in my opinion. If there's gonna be more risk than reward, I don't really understand why you would try and risk that in a game. And I mean, also, at least it's a game against Detroit and not like Edmonton or something, you know? Anyway, Eric Brightstrom did tie the game for the Canucks later in the third. Great shot as well. He always gets a goal, it seems, when we need one. And Jake DeBrusk gets the hat trick in overtime with a minute to go in overtime. Wins it 5-4 for the Canucks, and they're now, what is it, 3-1 on this road trip, or 3-2? 3-1, yeah. Because it was, oh no, 4-1. Because it was Ottawa, Boston, lost to Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Detroit. Yeah. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Also, before I get into the next little bit of the game, I did also want to highlight Quinn Hughes, not only the fastest Canuck to this milestone, but he reached his 300th and was the first assist his 311th or his 310th? Anyway, he hit, I think 322 now because, or 312 now because or 313. That man just keeps creating plays that are just mind-blowing, because he got an assist on the Jake DeBrusk goal, in overtime. He also got the assist on the first two. And he passed Alex Edler for most assists by a defenseman in franchise history. Alex Edler previously held the record with 310. He also hit it, correct me if I'm wrong, 537 games in a shorter amount of time. 537 games. That sounds right. It was started with a 5 and there's a 7 in there, but a lot of games. And they're talking on the panel during the second intermission, just like, yeah, he could probably double it. Like, it only took him, I mean, Alex Edler played 900 something games for the Canucks, so I think Quinn Hughes could at the very least double it. Yeah, congratulations to Quinn Hughes. Puts his name in the history books, for the Canucks once again. And yeah, he will just continue driving play because that's what he does best. Okay. Now, before we get into this second period here, Game Over Network is an independent production focused on community, inclusion, and quality people. If you're interested in supporting the Game Over Network, we have crowdfunding options available. In the description of this episode, you'll find a link to our Patreon page, and we're also working on a page through LaRouche, a crowdfunding platform for companies originating in Quebec. For LaRouche, we're aiming to raise $15,000, and if we hit that goal, we'll gain access to government grants that will allow us to employ more people. If you have any ideas for what you'd like to see as giveaways from these crowdfunding efforts, let us know in the comments on Twitter, Instagram, or on our Discord server. Alright, so the Vancouver Canucks, they're looking for somebody on the back end. I don't think they're sugarcoating this. They've said Hoglander is an option. The GM of the Blue Jackets, I believe, or AGM, somebody from the Blue Jackets front office was at the game. They're apparently interested in Hoglander. Hoglander wasn't great tonight. He was not having a good game. He took the tripping penalty in the second, and then later on got stuck in the box to take the penalty for the unsuccessful challenge, which, surprise. Yeah, he had, how much time on ice did he have tonight? Let's see, is it over under 6 minutes? 10:33! Upgrade! Woo! Yeah, he is on that line with, Heinen? No, he's not. Anyway, I don't, they're next to each other, but I think that's also because they're both, -2 on the night. So, congratulations to them. Yeah, Niels Hogland is apparently of interest to the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets did trade, Jiricek. Make sure I'm pronouncing that right. They did trade Jiricek to the Minnesota Wild for, all of the Wild's draft picks, I'm going to assume. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the Wilds traded, like, an entire draft class, for this in, well, it was yesterday, so November. We'll see how that works out. That'll be interesting. The only player that I can think of that was recently traded for, like, an entire draft class was Tanner Jeannot. Silence. We know how that worked out for Tampa. Yeah, I'm not sure what Columbus would be able to send back, because I saw people saying that they wanted Kent Johnson, but he's still pretty young, and the Canucks want somebody that can win now, not somebody they have to develop. I mean, he does have 11 points in 8 games. So he is doing pretty good. Is doing pretty good. Let me just see here. 1 second. Da, da, da. Yeah, he does seem pretty good. He's also a center. I don't know if we need another center. We need somebody on the back end. He's from Port Moody. I mean, we usually sign the local guys past their prime anyway, so he's probably gonna be a Canuck in 10 years then. I understand, but also if you need somebody to win now, getting a younger player where you probably have to work on a bit of stuff with them, I just don't know. I don't know. His contract, he was signed in 2022. I mean, I also don't think Columbus would give him up unless we gave a lot for him. I don't think that, like, even if it was Hoglander in a first, I still don't know. Like, it would make no sense, I think, in Columbus's opinion, because they also just signed him to a 3-year contract, so I don't think that's an option for the Canucks. I don't know who else Columbus would want to, or we would want from Columbus even, because we're not getting draft picks. Columbus would want draft picks, because they're still in somewhat of a rebuilding era. And we'll talk rebuilds in a second here, but as the season goes on, there's going to be less and less available defensemen. The Canucks need somebody for defense, considering I think potentially our second best defenseman, because Quinn Hughes is likely always going to be the best. Our second and third best defensemen tonight were Eric Brandstrom, probably, and Noah Juleson. Tyler Myers is also up there, But that's just a bit concerning. I know obviously Filip Hronek is out and he's apparently going to be out for a while. Don't have a lot of word on what that injury is. Can assume it's something with his shoulder. Watching that hit that he took against Pittsburgh, they need an answer to kind of fill that void. We don't know how long he's going to be out for. Don't necessarily need to call up 15 players from Abbotsford. I know Elias, not, okay. This is really confusing. Defenseman Pedersen. It's gonna get so much worse if he gets called up this year. Defenseman Pedersen. He just got his first AHL goal last night. Think the Canucks still lost, but he did get his first AHL goal. Not sure if that's gonna warrant a call up. They don't. Who do they have with them right now? Well, they have Filip Hronek, who's scratched, but he's likely going to be, I can assume, do they have an IR spot still? We'll see. He's likely going to be put on some kind of injured reserve, I would assume. I don't think his shoulder will just suddenly rebuild itself. I mean, I twist my arm too far sometimes, and that knocks me out for a few days. Again, I'm not a professional hockey player, so it's a bit different. But I could still imagine getting pushed into the boards. Probably not good. Sorry, I cannot see. And Mark Friedman they also have called up. So I mean, if you're turning to Mark Friedman as your depth already, I'm not sure how this is going to work in the long run as injuries continue to pile up, and injuries are already piling up for the Vancouver Canucks. They do have a number of players out. They still have Demko out. Miller's out, obviously. I mean, Besser is back. Joshua's back. Almost lost Connor Garland, and I had somebody say in a group chat, if Garland is out, then our season's done. I don't think we need to go that far. He is a pretty important member to the team. Don't know if we need to doomsday it, but yeah, just who is even available this year for the Canucks? Time for Rue to shine. Oh, wow. I haven't heard that name in a while. Let me just see who. Do you think we get Rasmus Anderson? Yeah, well, because David Jiricek is gone. Marcus Pettersson is up. I don't know. I don't want Rasmus Ristolainen. I don't think Nikita Zadorov would solve our problems either, because Nikita Zadorov did nothing for the Canucks in the regular season, and that's where we're struggling right now, defensively. So I don't think he's the answer. I mean, also, I was about to say also we don't have our best goaltender, but at the same time, we're still leaving our goaltenders out to dry, basically. Like, both Shelovs and Lankinen, doesn't matter. I vote for a monopoly on all the PDs in the league. I could see it. Yeah. I don't know. Could be interesting. Marcus Pettersson. He's 28. What is his contract? Oh, his contract isn't too bad. It's $4 million. He's UFA at the end of this year. I could see them doing it. Might have to pull some strings on the Pittsburgh end. I don't know. He's an option. It would be funny to have like 15 different Peter Petterssons. Because we did have for a while. We also had Lane Peterson. I don't know where he's playing right now, but we did have him for a while. It just depends on like what's available for them, because the Canucks, they're probably holding on to their draft picks for Canucks draft picks. Okay. That is not helpful. Okay. We have apparently 2 million of deadline cap space. Yeah, so we have our firsts for the next 3 years. Not sure if we want to give those up unless it's really needed. Seconds for the next 2 years, none in 2027. What happened to that? Anyway, no thirds for the next 2 years. We have a 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th for for this year. Next year, missing 3rd and 7th, and then the year after, we're missing a 2nd, but we have 2 4ths. So there is that. I'm not sure what prospects they would want to move on. If they're moving on any prospects, I don't think they would want to move on like the likes of Lekari-Mekki. Yeah, I'm not sure. Hattie goal for Jake. Yeah. Jake DeBrusk he went scoreless in, what was it, 10? He's been on a tear since then. He's had, what? I can't do math. 7 goals? 8 goals now, maybe? In the last 6 games. So, hats off to him. He's really stepped up in the absence of JT Miller. And just in general, as, like, obviously Brock Besser was coming back from injury. Elias Pettersson has also been ramping up his play a bit. Trading away picks for rentals resulted in some who last season off-season moved to new NHL teams. Well, yeah, because Lindholm and Zadorov didn't really, like, they were good. I'm not even going to say good in the playoffs. Zadorov scored like 1 goal in the playoffs. That he scored 1 goal that was useful to the Canucks and did nothing pretty much outside of that. Because he scored the overtime winner. Got 10 goals after this game now. Jeez. Yeah, Lindholm he did really nothing for the Canucks except for that 1 goal against Nashville in overtime. And Zadorov, he was a 2nd and 3rd, was he not? I believe. And he wanted way too much money for his level of skill. And he also barely did anything in the regular season. He's just another big body. We have enough big bodies already. I mean, sure, Desharnais isn't the most effective. At the same time, neither was Zadorov. I didn't think Jake and Petey would work after their initial stint together, but I'm very happy to be wrong about that. Yeah, they've turned it around. They've proved some people wrong. I think that they're one of the pairs now that you don't want to separate. It's like Miller Besser, those two, PD and JDB. Who else do you not want to separate? I guess Garland's face in the puck, because that keeps happening. Yeah. Zadorov and Lindholm really did nothing for the Canucks. I don't see why they would want they would do the same situation. It's also not like they need help down the middle like they did last year. I feel like their forward group, yeah, sure, they've had to call some people up because there's been injuries and whatnot, but I feel like their forward group is pretty competent. I don't want to say it's consistent because there's been a lot of moving parts, but they've been competent and pretty good. It's just the defensive aspects. They need to work on a lot of stuff because our decor right now is Quinn Hughes. He was playing with Desharnais at points tonight. Not sure if that's a pairing you want to ever use again. But yeah, it's Hughes, Desharnais, Myers, Soucy, which those two, I was just talking about pairs that you should never separate. Those two should never be together again. Myers, Soucy, Juleson, Brandstrom, and Friedman as our backup 7th D. I think Friedman should come into play at one point this road trip. I don't think Desharnais had that good of a game, if I'm being honest, but they need somebody to not, I was about to say match Quinn Hughes' level. No one can probably go 1-for-1 with Quinn Hughes except maybe Cale Makar, but that's pushing it. I don't want to say that's pushing it. Cale Makar is very good, and there's a lot of defensemen that are very good in this league. It's just that, yeah, I'm not sure. We need somebody, I don't want to say Hronek level either, because Hronek, I mean, he's been uplifted by Hughes' play. That's how he got his contract. We need somebody on that level that can kind of match him. And I mean, Quinn Hughes doesn't seem to have a problem with who his partner is, but you need somebody who is able to also shut down people as best as he can. So, yeah. Called the management disrespectful. Good job, Zadorov. That was before he hit the market. That's just a little funny. He knows how to make an impression. That's oh boy, that's bad. I also don't know if they would want to, I mean, they did send down some players that have factored into NHL play this season. I believe Oman's still down in Abbotsford too, but Lekari Meki, Baines, with the Canucks right now, they only have 12 forwards called up. So I'm not sure if they would also want to trade Niels Höglander for that reason, because they only have 12 forwards called up at the moment. So yeah, I mean, I'm not in the front office, but I don't know who they would want to trade for that's on the same level unless they could pull out some stops. I could see them getting Marcus Patterson. That's just because he's from Pittsburgh, though. And we seem to really like taking guys from Pittsburgh. Or just taking guys who have been to Pittsburgh once in their lives. So, that's that. I wanted to talk a little bit about rebuilds, because that's just so fun. I want to talk about it as an outsider perspective on what the heck's going on in Detroit. But before I get into that, Game Over has you covered after the game, but in order to get ready to watch the Canucks, you've got to get your game on, too. Game On Hockey is a short-form daily news podcast covering everything you need to know across the NHL. Get all your NHL news in under 10 minutes, Monday through Friday on the Game Over Network YouTube channel, and in podcast form, which you can find at thegameovernetwork.com. Alright, that's for later. Okay, I'm gonna open it up to the chat a little early tonight. Just tonight, it's 1 p.m. What's the deal with the Yzer plan? Because, just from an outsider perspective, as somebody who admittedly does not watch the Detroit Red Wings all too often, it feels like Detroit has not been good since I was in elementary school. And I understand cups aren't necessarily a marker of if you're good or not. Trust me, I'm a Canucks fan. At the same time, um, let's just look. They've been in a rebuild for as long as I can remember. Steve Yzerman is there because A, he's Steve Yzerman, and also B, he left the he basically set Tampa up for the success that they had without actually um being with them when they won the cups. All right. So they haven't made the playoffs since 2016 and they haven't won a round since 2013. So when I said they haven't been good since I was in elementary school, I was not kidding. Wow. Yeah, they're consistently not great. And I'm not saying, because, like, I'm a Canucks fan. I just said that. We also have not made the playoffs a long time. But it feels like Detroit is always just too bad to get into a wild card position. Or they're going 17-49-5 like they did in 2020, which I know that season ended early. But oh my goodness, is that bad? They got more wins in the bubble season than they did in an actual season that was played. Um, and yeah, sure, that was, well, they drafted Sider in 2019. That was what their big thing was, and then he wins the Calder and then just kind of drops off. I mean, he's still a pretty decent player, don't get me wrong, and I'm not saying that once you win the Calder, you're supposed to be a world beater. Elias Pettersson, at the same time, Elias Pettersson regained some form. Sider's still figuring it out. I get it, he's younger. Um, Also Calder winner, Tyler Myers. There's that. Looking at their management team, it's a lot of ex-wings. That's how that turned out for the Oilers when they were really bad. Is the Oilers management team still not just all former Oilers? I don't know. Thank you, Casey. Yzerman is talented, but only one person can only do so much. Yeah. Um, does he have the Benning title of just everything ever for management? The Wings also drafted Philip Zadina at sixth. Yeah, well, I saw a thread on this before. I saw a post about Philip Zadina before the stream. Actually, it was during the very short break in between the third period and the overtime. And it was just like, oh, I think the Oilers are still really bad. Thank you, Casey. Um, it was saying like, oh, Philip Zadina. I can't believe they drafted Philip Zadina over Quinn Hughes. Well, Philip Zadina was also supposed to go before sixth, so it felt like he had dropped off quite a bit. And he was scoring a lot in junior. It's not the matter of, oh, that player, you could see that Quinn Hughes was going to be better based on like junior numbers or college numbers. Um, Philip Zadina was good in junior. It just didn't translate into the NHL. I think that was the biggest issue. And yeah, he was a draft bust, essentially. I hate using that term, but he's kind of the essence of it. It's different to say the Canucks not taking William Nylander at eighth. I feel like, yeah, that 2014 still hurts. I was 11 when that draft happened. Still not over it. Um, yeah, cause I pulled up all of you Levy's numbers, just to stare because there were so many other players that we could have taken. Um, yeah. Again, reminder, the Canucks chose Ollie Levy at 5th over Matthew Tkachuk in 6th in 2016. We need to get a goalie in case Skinner gets cold. Let's get a forward. Yeah, I think Boston is headed down that route too, because don't they have all ex-Bruins in their front office, and they're doing so well right now. I don't know why I'm knocking on them. They're having their 100th anniversary party today. So, yeah. Yeah. I still can't believe we drafted a defenseman with less than half the points. Anyway, moving on from just absolute pain and agony, Boston, I'm playing the smallest violin for them too. Yeah, oh wow. Yeah, the Canucks in 2014 drafted Jake Virtanen 6th over William Nylander in 8th, and Jared McCann 24th over David Pastrnak and Adrian Kempe. So there's that. Yay. Funnily enough, Thatcher Demko was drafted over Marcus Pettersson. Wow, this 2017 draft. 2017, 2014. Interesting. I can read. Da, 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 da. Yeah, so I mean, Nylander had less points to show for it compared to Virtanen, but it was also the Swedish league, so it's different than junior, and Virtanen was only point per game in junior. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, same thing with Pasternak, though. Still, again, just because their junior numbers are good does not mean they'll turn out as NHL players. I mean, Jared McCann has turned out as an NHL player, just not with the Vancouver Canucks, obviously. He's now with Seattle and is doing pretty well over there. So good for him. Still hurts a little bit knowing what could have been, but I think that comes back to the same mindset with Philip Zadina. Like, yeah, sure, he had all these numbers in junior. Who knew that they weren't going to translate to the NHL level? I think that is how Red Wings and Canucks fans can relate to each other, compared to, oh, yeah. The Canucks have drafted quite a few busts among top 10 draft picks. Yeah, I don't need to be reminded. I know that all too well. Yeah, I still think about the 2014 and 2016 drafts, when I try and sleep. It still haunts me. And I had no control over it, obviously, but it's just, yeah. But like I said, you can't necessarily tell how a player is going to translate to the NHL level because junior isn't everything. They are still developing. Canucks have much more competent management now. Yeah, I mean, the old front, they had their talent occasionally shown. They drafted a few key players. They did the Miller trade. They did some good things. Just a lot of other things were bad. Yeah. Even if the drafting is mediocre moving forward, still making moves. Yeah, I would say their free agency signings for the Canucks are way better. The drafts, I mean, decent. Yeah, I mean, time will tell. They've only had, was it 3 drafts? Only 2 first rounders in Jonathan Lekarimäki, who has played some NHL minutes and scored his first goal, so that was pretty exciting. As well as Tom Wielander. Was playing in college. Yes. So time will tell how those draft picks work out. Same thing with a lot of the lower rounders. Same thing with guys we signed out of junior. I mean, Archie Bates has played quite a bit for under Rick Tocchet, so we'll see how that pans out. I think it's just more draft picks take a while, and even though Detroit has had a lot of seemingly promising young players, it just hasn't translated to success on paper yet after nearly a decade. So we'll see if they get into the playoffs. They're currently under 500, so time will tell. I'm not sure if they get in because they're in a very competitive Atlantic division, but we shall see. All right, just before we head into this last segment here, what better way to support something you love than by rocking it as clothing? Game Over's apparel line has dropped with 3 unique designs. Whether you feel the nostalgic pull of our retro skater design, want to make a statement with our established design, currently on sale, or want to wear your love for goalies proudly with our live and die by the goalie design, or if you just need another coffee to get through the winter, we have you covered. Or, 9:30 a.m. PST start times, baby! Designed by Brady Chalice from Game Over Winnipeg. Use the QR code on stream now. Yes. And take a look through our apparel store and help us rebuild local sports media in Canada while repping your community. All right. Nail Yakupov. Let's go, baby! Like Philip Zadina was drafted in the top 10 by his NHL draft team, but also after his initial he played 6 seasons in the NHL. He lasted that long? The Sens have also drafted quite a few top 10 picks, like Tim Stützle and Brady Tkachuk. The Sens are a whole other issue. They're a whole other ballpark. They hurt my brain to think about. I somehow it's always they go on a bad run like midway through the season and then there's out of it for the rest of the year, but they make every other team's lives a living hell. I remember when the Canucks got knocked out of the playoffs by an Adam Gaudette shootout goal. I mean, it wasn't out of the playoffs yet, technically. This is in 21-22. I witnessed it in person. Adam Gaudette comes up to score, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Because remember, this was after he was a Canuck the previous season and how that ended and everything. He scored in the 5th round of the shootout when Ottawa was playing here. And then the Canucks went on a 3-game road trip and lost all 3. Came back to Rogers Arena, and then as they're playing Seattle, LA won, so they got the last playoff spot. But I still blame Adam Gaudette because if he hadn't had scored that goal, and the Canucks had actually not had the life sucked out of them, apparently, I think that they could have had a chance to get a wild card spot. But also, that's me coping. Yeah, thanks for taking Hamonic off our hands, Sens. 3rd round pick. Amazing. That and that pick turned into Elias Pettersson, the second, Elias Pettersson Jr. Imagine they put Pettersson Jr. on his jersey. They're not going to, but that's so funny. I mean, they might. No, they won't. They won't even add, like, the umlauts to some jerseys, so. That would be funny, though. Yeah, Travis Hamonic. 3rd round pick. I mean, we'll see how, Pettersson works out. But that's just funny, man. You gave him a 3rd rounder. They re-signed him, too. I believe. Yeah, they re-signed him. Ottawa is just such a funny team, and they're like, oh, we need to get out of this not getting into playoff series funk. Let's bring in Travis Green. Because that worked out so well at his last team. I mean, he lost the finals with Utica in the AHL, um, with Jacob Markstrom as his goalie, actually, and then got called up for the Canucks, made one playoff series, and that was because they put up a monster performance against Minnesota in the bubble. Well, technically they made two playoff series, but one of them was the play-in thing. Anyway, it's an interesting thing. Pierre Dorion once claimed the Sens rebuild had been done. Oh boy. Oh boy. And I'm not somebody who likes to say rebuild. Obviously, it's not really a word in Canucks world because every time that a rebuild was mentioned, it was always just hush hush. No, this is retool. And then we would just get a new coach and everything would be fixed. I think the Sens are past a new coach point. They have a new GM. They have a new owner even. What curse is in that building? Is it because they play in basically Quebec? Like, I actually no, the arena's more west. Because they play in basically Manitoba? I don't know how big Ontario it is. They play in Thunder Bay. What's the problem over there? Hey, I mean, maybe their roof doesn't leak as much as the Raj does. So that's okay. It's okay. The rebuild has been done. Oh, if you're saying the rebuild had been done, the rebuild's definitely not over. It is definitely not over. If you're saying that, you need to write one of those New York Rangers statements out right now about a rebuild because it's just beginning, brother. It's just beginning. Also, I find it really funny that teams that started a rebuild effectively just a few years ago are now, I mean, the LA Kings aren't good, but they've made the playoffs at least. And they're doing that, whereas Detroit out Ottawa has made the playoffs more recently than Detroit, but it feels like Ottawa gets more flack than Detroit does. And sure, Detroit signed Patrick Kane. He's injured. I forgot he played for them. And I was like, I think it was during overtime. I was like, where's Patrick Kane? Yeah. No playoff games since 2017. Yeah, the Canucks beat that streak. Hopefully the Sens do it eventually. I don't think Detroit does it this year, considering they might also have a goaltender injury with Cam Talbot, who was doing all right for them this year, I think. Pretty good. Yeah, Ville Husso did come in and let in 3 goals. But before I end the show, I just wanted to. Oh, Kevin Lankinen an 871. Well, yay. We won. Um, yeah. They combined in Cam Talbot had an 857. He let in 2 goals on on 14 shots, including 2 on 3 on the power play, which is the first 2 DeBrusque goals. Then Ville Husso, after those, he came in the second. He made 15 saves on 18 shots for an 833 save percentage. Good job, Detroit. Wow. The Sens play the Ducks. They finished playing the Kings under 24 hours ago. Why does the NHL do this? Like, I understand back-to-backs have to happen, but like, why? Does Tocchet win Coach of the Year again? No. I don't think that's in the cards. Just because I feel like there's been a number of games where he's been out-coached, especially at home. Just some of the decisions that are made by his bench, and just in general how the team has been playing. I know we're not only a handful of games. We're basically a quarter of the way into the season right now. I don't think Tocchet. If he's a finalist for the Jack Adams this year, how bad was the NHL coaching this year? Honestly, because I don't think he deserves that. I mean, like, he's a good coach. Don't get me wrong, but hasn't been at his best form. It's not the same as last season, pretty much. I don't even know who would be coach of the year, because like there's a few teams that have outperformed what you think they would be capable of. Washington, Minnesota, like the Jets even. I mean, the Jets, they're still doing Jets things, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think Tocchet wins it this year. Um, because where we're at this point, yeah, we're over a quarter into the season. I yeah, sure, we have a winning record. We're third in the Pacific right now. I don't think that's good. I don't think his I think Winnipeg's coach would be a very strong contender for coach of the year. Exactly. I think we'll just look at the I mean, Winnipeg, yeah, it does need to translate into postseason success. Second, the Winnipeg nomination. Winnipeg, yeah. I think Minnesota is up there as well as Washington because, I mean, Minnesota, they've been they have been overperforming. Washington, whoa, whoa, they are. I mean, I Minnesota didn't make the playoffs last year, but I'm less surprised that they're good compared to Washington based on how Washington was last year. Because they got into the playoffs because John Tortorella pulled a goalie, and then um they got swept in the first round, and then they went and got Pierre-Luc Dubois, which has worked out somewhat for them. And I know Ovechkin's injured, but they've also been working on the scoring record, and they've still been doing decently okay without him. And I understand he's not like if Canucks are missing JT Miller like they are, but still. Anyway, I think that's enough talk about the Washington Capitals this evening. If Paul Maurice wears more t-shirts with his cats on it, I would give him a nod for the Jack Adams. Anyway, thank you for joining me tonight. Tonight, again, this afternoon on Game Over Vancouver. It'd be supremely funny if Montgomery won it. If the Blues go from last to first again, like they did in 2019, which I'm not advocating for, but it would be really funny. That would be hilarious. Anyway, thank you for joining me this afternoon on Game Over Vancouver for the early start after the Vancouver Canucks beat the Detroit Red Wings in overtime 5-4, thanks to a hat trick from Jake DeBrusk, and Pia Suter and Eric Brandstrom. And also, shout out Kevin Lankinen. He kept us in that first period. He's definitely been one of the better Canucks this season thus far, as Demko is still out and the Canucks defense still has no idea they're not playing beer league at a lot of points. All right. Remember to subscribe, like the video, comment, rate, do all that fun stuff, and we'll see you again. When do the Canucks play next? They play in a couple of days. Is it Tuesday? Tuesday. They play the Wild. Oh, I was just talking up the Wild. All right. Thank you for joining me, everybody. Have a